There was a wedding at Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus was also invited to the wedding with his disciples. Friday is the March for Life in Washington, D.C. Because of today's proximity to the March for Life, I would like to analyze and view the story of the wedding at Cana through an unapologetically pro-life lens. John's gospel begins with the astonishing claim that the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory, glory as of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. And then, the very first miracle Jesus did in the Gospel of John is this miracle of changing water into wine in order to bless a couple at their wedding. Why? Because of the importance of marriage. The church teaches that by his presence at the wedding and performance of the miracle, Jesus elevated marriage to the level of a sacrament. It's not just an agreement or a covenant, it's a sacrament. Marriage has been so degraded in our culture, so drained of its meaning, that we forget that it is a sacrament. The church recognizes that the sacrament of marriage confers supernatural power and grace, much like baptism does, and ordination does, and the Eucharist does. Marriage unites a man and a woman for life into a union that is greater than the sum of the parts. And Catholic marriage gives them the grace, with the support of the church, of course, and with the power of the sacraments, gives them the grace to fulfill the duties and the potential of that union. I never fully appreciated marriage until I became Catholic. Because from Christian marriage comes the Christian family. And the Christian family is the womb of life and the basic cell of Christian civilization. Our families are where new souls, created in the image of God, are brought into the world. Our families are where our children first learn the faith. They learn it by watching you and watching their brothers and sisters. Our families are where our children learn the meaning of charity, and from which ultimately they are launched out into the world to carry out the Great Commission. Strong families are the foundation of a strong culture that values life. Pope John Paul II called the family the domestic church. On the other hand, the breakdown of marriage and family increases the temptation to abort, increases exploitation of women and children, increases violence, general violence and despair in our culture, and it destroys culture. The casual acceptance of divorce and adultery that has occurred in America over the last 100 years has degraded our nation's families and produced the broken anti-life culture we see all around us today. John Paul II called it the culture of death. And it's not hard to see that the world we live in today is strongly antagonistic to these ideas, to this understanding of marriage. And it's clear that certain groups in our nation are waging an all-out war against life, against marriage, and against the Catholic family. And this war against life and family is diabolical. So I want to remind us what St. Paul said in Ephesians chapter 6, he said, "We are not contending against flesh and blood, but against the principalities, against the powers, against the world rulers of this present darkness, against the spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places." And because this is a battle about marriage and life, and God alone is the creator of both marriage and of life, the battle we are in is a spiritual battle. And I offer you this morning a serious warning, as well as encouragement and hope about this spiritual battle. The warning and the hope come to us through the late Cardinal Carlo Caffarra. He was a close colleague of Pope John Paul II. John Paul II appointed Cardinal Caffarra to found the John Paul II Institute for Studies on Marriage and the Family. And he was a member of the Pontifical Academy for Life. And Cardinal Caffarra said that during the early 1980s, when he was in the process of founding the Pontifical Institute of Marriage and Family, he met a lot of resistance. Now, he expected to meet resistance from outside the church, but it surprised him that he met resistance from inside the church as well. And what he said, in his words, he said, the Institute was not wanted because of the vision it was proposing. And Cardinal Caffarra became discouraged and unsure of how to proceed. But because the patroness for the Institute for Marriage and Family is Our Lady of Fatima, it occurred to him to write a letter to Sister Lucia of Fatima. You might recall that she was one of the 3 children who had seen Our Lady of Fatima in 1917, and she was still alive in 1983. So Cardinal Caffarra wrote a letter to her and received a prompt reply. And Sister Lucia's letter encouraged him, inspired him to carry on, to persevere through his assignment. But what was most interesting to him, and which he never forgot, and which he passed on, which is the reason we know about this, this interesting fact, was the ending, the way Sister Lucia ended the letter, because she ended the letter with these words, these now immortal words. She said, "Father, a time will come when the decisive battle between the kingdom of Christ and Satan will be over marriage and family. And those who will work for the good of the family will experience persecution and tribulation. But do not be afraid, because Our Lady has already crushed Satan's head." Now, why would the decisive battle between the kingdom of Christ and Satan be over marriage and family? Well, I believe it's because at the beginning of creation, God himself established marriage as the place where a man and a woman created in the image and likeness of God would come together in conjugal love and cooperate with God. In conjugal love, the man and the woman cooperate with God to bring into the world a child with an eternal soul who is also created in the image and likeness of God. That profound fact in which in marriage we are, in marriage and the creation of children, we are partnering with God. We are co-workers with God in the creation of beings created in the image and likeness of God. And Satan hates God, but Satan cannot touch God, so he attacks God by attacking the children who are created in God's image and the families that bring them into the world. Shortly before his death in 2017, Cardinal Caffarra said he believed that the decisive battle has already begun. So, friends, we need to be aware of that, because unlike what our culture teaches, unlike what I learned when I was a teenager, marriage is not a boring legal contract between 2 people that the culture seems to think it is. No, instead, from the Catholic point of view, marriage is a miracle. It's a miracle. And that's why the first miracle, remember the last miracle in the Gospel of John is the resurrection. But this is what I'm saying to you now is why the first miracle, also connected to life, in the Gospel of John happened in the context of a wedding. And that is why the decisive battle between the kingdom of Christ and Satan will be over marriage and family. And that is why, in our present anti-life and anti-marriage culture, every one of us, whether we're married or not, whether we're childbearing age or not, everybody needs to do everything we can to support and to defend biblical Catholic marriage.